Can I use your loo real quick?
You can.
Yeah.
Have a go. There might be some wood lice on the floor.
Oh, nice.
They tend to crop up from time to time. Don't be scared.
All right, thanks.
Need to get the Hoover out.
Hello and welcome to Game Changing with me, Tim Thornton.
And me, Chris Sheldon.
In this podcast, we chat to various luminaries from the music world who we've met along the way.
About those key moments in their careers where the stars aligned and it all started to go right.
Well, that's enough. I can't take any more. I'm right out of vision. I'm right out of hope. You stirred me up, just knock me down. What's on your conscience? Nothing happens in my town. I'll do graffiti if you sing to me in French. What are we doing here if romance isn't dead? Mind your mouth as you walk with me. Take care, as you cross the street. Well, that's enough.
In 2004, a new English rock band came flying out of the traps and would, for the next 16 years and counting, leave an indelible imprint on the indie scene. I'm delighted to say that this episode comprises a conversation between myself and Paul Smith and Duncan Lloyd of Newcastle upon Tyne's formidable Maxïmo Park. I hope you enjoy it, and in the urgent spirit of the band themselves, let's get straight to it.
That's enough.
We signed our record contract with Warp eventually on the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle.
Oh, really? Nice.
Somebody, a friend of ours, brought a wallpaper pasting table and set it up in the middle of the Millennium Bridge. On the pedestrian side, there's a pedestrian side and a bike side for this essentially pedestrian bridge.
Yeah.
No cars can get across it, and we just set it up and some sort of symbolic moment. But that was.
Did you have loads of pictures taken of it?
There was a few.
They're awful.
Really? Oh no.
They're fairly bad. I mean, we did. This is the thing. It's kind of emblematic of our approach. Really, we've always done things in a slightly off-centre way.
Isn't it? Even down to being on Warp, I suppose that was a sort of off-centre thing.
It was,
I guess.
I mean,
When we met Steve Beckett, head of Warp, I think the way that we met him and the way that he was with us was we just felt really comfortable with him. Even though the label were really like us, But we also, we love things like Apex. So and broadcast will, I guess, felt more like a band thing. And he was so enthusiastic, and he just said that we would have to create freedom, whereas I think we met a few others and they made suggestions about, you should put the chorus here and there, and we're like, nah. I mean, they had more money, but then we were like, would we rather be with somebody who, would give us that freedom?
Yeah, sure.
And we just sat in the park with him with tins of Lilt and Coke, rather than in an office somewhere.
Nice.
So we were like,
good, isn't it?
he's the kind of person we quite like.
You didn't feel like you ever needed to move to London. I mean, that's really. That's really good.
It was. I think we were. After we were signed as well, it felt like we had the connection.
Yeah.
And perhaps as well, maybe Steve being from Sheffield was just like, it's cool, you're up north, it's fine,
So, at the very beginning, you seemed to kind of just charge in straight away. You were. I imagine you did a lot of touring for a certain trigger. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think even if you go right back when we were rehearsing in that little kind of space in mine and Tom and Chopper's flat, Lucas was in the flat below, and then Paul was around the corner, as was Archie. So everyone would come in this little room. We were saying we're not going to do any gigs until we're really tight.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
all the songs, and we're not just going to go out, hey, we're a band. We're going to go out and we wanted to be the best band in the city. It's like we want to go out, and when we go out, it's going to be undeniable, And I think we'd all been in bands. We'd all played in different groups, so we had the experience of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to shows. So it was like, right, when we go out, we're gonna be that force.
There's a lot of bad bands, local bands. People and it will always be this way. People want to be in bands for different reasons. People want to be singers for different reasons, and I just couldn't face being one of those bands that you would be indifferent to, whether you like us or not. We were going to do our thing to to its fullest potential at each stage. We weren't the finished article by any means, but we were probably a lot more of a finished article than a lot of bands who go out there and play a lot for because they just think they should be in a band. We wanted every song to be amazing. We wanted to be good at what we did.
And there was definitely that element of desperation, because not to make it in a group, but because of none of us were really doing that well financially. We were doing, we were sort of struggling, and we were either we had been on the dole, or we all had sort of part-time jobs or jobs that there were we're trying to cut down the hours so we could do the music, but then you're just surviving so you can do the music. And then but there was this feeling of not only that, but what was on the radio at the time was like, this is not us. We are, it's all this nice kind of, I guess, slower acoustic pop ballady, and we were just like, that's not our
which
generation.
Is fine, but it's just there was a preponderance of it. It didn't feel
so much of it.
Because this is like early 2000s, right? So because that, for me, that was a really shit time for music. I found before, kind of, I feel like before the Libertines and Block Party and you guys and all of that crowd all kind of came in, maybe 2003, 2004. But before that, it was sort of the post Britpop hangover.
Yeah, it's like late 90s.
And there was a lot of Coldplay and I mean, I'm sure they're charming people, but Travis and Coldplay, I just thought were just so bewilderingly kind of, it would just bring you down listening to this stuff, because you just felt like, God, I just want a bit more, energy about things.
It's not even that. It's the fact that because they were so successful, you then get all the facsimiles. And record companies trying to get, and there were lots of facsimiles, and it's everybody's got an acoustic guitar. The front man's got an acoustic guitar, and it's very kind of bland. And the same happened when our first album came out, and there were lots of other bands whose records got in the charts, and we got played on Radio 1. Which a lot of so-called guitar music would not get played on Radio 1 now. And you ended up with loads of watered down versions of it, and the advent of landfill indie as it's become known, and it's a this is the problem. It's a business, and it's capitalism, and it is what it is. You will always get people trying to replicate the formula and trying to find out what the formula is. What is the formula? What is happening here? There's people with guitars in suits or whatever, and maybe a lot of those bands, including ourselves, were looking at the past to try and go forwards. The idea of post-punk music became a little bit overdone, especially when people were writing about us, when we were more influenced by sort of American, I guess, kind of R.E.M. and grungier stuff, Pavement. Those were sort of equally important to us as...
I mean, like Going Missing and Graffiti are way more like lo-fi. They had more of a lo-fi thing that we liked about Pavement and we liked about Sonic Youth and things, whereas it's like they're just a post-punk. But it's like, okay, apply some pressure. Now more of the shop, they have those choppy influences. We listen to Wire, but we listen to Captain Beefheart for those choppy influences as much as, so it was like, actually, the influences are way more. It's like, you're like the Jam and you're like XTC and you're like, actually, we don't really. Tom likes XTC, and
I like XTC.
We like them, but they weren't like a blueprint for us. And so a lot of that got skewed, and then you end up going, well, we've been labelled like that. But I think that happens to every group.
So I've just done a lot of listening to the last to all your albums over the last, and it's interesting because Earthly Pleasures, for example, I hadn't heard for maybe, I don't know, 13 years or something.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Do you
don't know what it sounds like.
Do you do that thing of like never listening to a finished record again?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Although you end up having to rehearse songs and stuff, and you want to slot things in, and then you end up listening to it intensively again. Right.
And
that's that sort of. But certain album tracks I wouldn't have heard in years.
So we've interviewed Gil Norton.
Oh yeah.
But you had Gil on Earthly Pleasures and National Health.
Yes.
Okay. I've just found it interesting, the producers that you've worked with, because he's the only one that's done 2, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul Epworth, first one.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think let's get someone different, or was Paul Epworth not available, or?
We thought get somebody different.
Yeah.
And I think we thought we might work. We've never rule out working with somebody again. But yeah, we were very much in the mindset of doing everything as differently as we could with each record at that point. But yeah, at that first record, it felt like, right, we've done that. Let's move on.
Yeah. I think with each one we kind of try and think, okay, let's go with someone new. And it's like, because Paul Epworth was great, and it was just the first thing we'd done, so we learnt a lot working with him.
Yeah.
It was quite a hedonistic time in that album.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I guess with Gil, a different thing. He was obviously an older producer, and so we worked with him, and
with quite a pedigree.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think
we wanted to rock out a bit more as well. We felt like the first album was kind of punky and sort of a strangely not lo-fi, but kind of there's a real edge to it. Yeah. It's very trebly record sonically.
Energetic.
There's a lot of energy on it.
I was listening to, because I know that plenty of music rocks out these days, but listening to first single on Earthly Pleasures, come on, what's my brain doing?
Velocity? Was that?
Velocity, yeah, exactly. It's fucking gets going, it's like it really does pound along. And I was, listening to it, and I'd forgotten, it was silly, but I'd forgotten how fast it is, but it's like proper fast. It's not.
So do we.
Not sort of like Idles fast, where obviously they're very fast, but somehow Our Velocity has that kind of fucking energy, And the first album as well. Apply Some Pressure and Going Missing.
Yeah.
Which is the one guitar riff I can play with a tuned down.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but they're great, like energetic songs,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very. We were deliberately trying to be as concise as we possibly could be. No frills.
Yeah.
Not repeating things over and over again. No guitar solos.
Yeah.
Virtually no guitar solos.
Get rid of the reverb. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like very dry, isn't it? I think I've written dry down here somewhere.
It was one of one of our things is like no fancy. It has to be. It has to be as upfront, and so it was almost like this is how we feel. It's like,
and the lyrics are also very economical, I'd say. Are you a fan of Elvis Costello?
I am, yes,
because he doesn't waste a syllable, and I feel like that a little bit with you. It's like every word does something.
Yeah, well, it's musically, lyrically, the whole thing, artwork, whatever. Yeah. We don't want to waste anybody's time. We don't want to waste plastic. In creating something that will just fill up the world, just more landfill. You want it to really matter, and obviously everybody does who makes records, but we were taking it to a real fine point in what we were making as well. The making of it should reflect our ideals, and with the second record we wanted to expand a little more. And emphasise the more romantic moments, and so we knew that Gil had done stuff like, I think I worked on maybe engineered Ocean Rain by Echo and the Bunnymen. He'd worked on Born Sandy Devotional by the Triffids. Again, sort of romantic, wordy records. But we knew obviously the Pixies, the Foo Fighters. We know that the man can make things that kick you up the backside, and that was we felt like those are part of our entire worldview as a band, and therefore are integral to a certain trigger. But we wanted to kind of see if we could maybe go even further in that direction, and that kind of quiet, loud thing. We don't do it like the Pixies do it, but there are something like Our Velocity. When the guitars kick in, it's like it's a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Obviously, once you know the song, but that was the kind of thing that we were trying to get at on that particular record.
Right, and he brought some of that back for National Health, I guess, because of like Hips and Lips has sort of like a beguiling beginning where you think not really understand. The first time I heard Hips and Lips, I forgot about this, but the first time I heard it, I thought it was Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
At the beginning. And then it suddenly kicks off and you're like, oh, hang on. And also, I swear, until about 2 days ago, I thought the chorus lyric was, "You're a poser to me, and you always will be." And I was I am still living in Hackney, and there was lots of hipsters around, and I just thought it was a comment about like you're a poser to me.
I'd not thought of that, but there you go. Now I can hear it. Now
Sorry, I'm probably going to ruin it when you next play that song.
I punched the fence last night, another act which you thought pathetic. Despite this love, I can't forgive when you say forget it. Your face will fall, but let's try to keep it together. The blade withdraws before the knot starts to sever. The way you stick out your lips and keep your hands on your hips, and I'm supposed to know, and I'm supposed to know. The way you stick out your lips and keep your hands on your hips, and I'm supposed to know what that means. You're a puzzle to me, and you always will be. You're a puzzle to me, and you always will be. You're a puzzle to me, and you always will be. You're a puzzle to me, and you always will be.
With each record, we'll always say, what do these songs need? What do we need as a band right now after this last record? So you've caught us at a funny time, because we are now in that same process again of trying to find somebody to record our new record, and we're trying to say, well, what do we need? You know, the last record we recorded entirely live, and then added a few extra things.
In Chicago,
that was in Chicago, in Wilco's studio. Yeah. And so we now want to kick against that a little bit and try something very different, especially because it'll be our 7th record. And you know, I feel, you know, we all feel like we need to sort of make a statement and do something as different as we possibly can without losing the ethos of the band,
the essence of Maxïmo,
which was kind of what we were also thinking when we made Too Much Information, the 5th album. When the first couple of singles were Leave This Island and Brain Cells, which are very different to a lot of the songs that we write. And so it feels like we're at that kind of point again where we could do with shaking things up a bit.
Do you like recording away from home in America and so on? Yeah,
love it.
It's fun, right? It's
I mean, and it's you know, how many people get to do stuff like that? I know. You know, it may be the case that we can't afford to do it in the future. You know, there's always the financial reality of it. And the financial reality of recording in London is often much more expensive than going out to America and staying in an Airbnb.
It seems wild in a way that we've gone to America because it's been cheaper than us going to stay in London.
We did 2 albums in the States, and that's precisely why we did that, because for one thing, they said there are all these ridiculous studios in Los Angeles and they're cheap. I mean, comparatively speaking, because they're trying to fill them. They're trying to kind of keep them, you know, keep them open. But I just love going to different places to record.
Well, it's very exotic, and people often say, well, how did that influence the record? And obviously the record was usually in our circumstances it's been written already beforehand, because we couldn't afford to go somewhere and be, you know, inspired for a month and then write about it. And things take a lot longer than that anyway for us. But it does give you a different perspective on what you're doing and what you're singing about, the way you play, depending on the gear that you've got available. Like when we were recording with Wilco's producer, Tom Schick, we were surrounded by Jeff Tweedy from Wilco's, again, vintage gear. All of the setup was to record live. It was ready to go. So we didn't have to waste time trying to find a sound. They knew exactly how to get things going. The first track off that last album is the first take of the first song that we recorded in there.
Really? Oh wow,
that is fairly wild to me. That's wild because we're not like that. No producers like that.
It's not.
And he was just so laid back.
Yeah, it was like not. Yeah, because we just sort of felt relaxed. It was almost like being in a front room and. Oh, just try this. Oh, this one's good. Try that guitar. Like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds good. Try that. And Tom's on this vintage kit. Oh, yeah, this kit. Same with the bass. Just great old bass amp and just Fender Precision with like million-year-old strings on that are just this, boop, 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 like great sort of sound. So it's just like straight away in there. Do not bring anything. You will not need it.
Not need it. No,
and you just turn up and go, wow, there's this. I don't know, 52. Telecaster, or you can get all geeky about the gear, but it was like we had that choice.
But we were there while the election was going on. It was
the American election.
Yes, so there were the debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were occurring, and we were making this political record. And the guy who came in and did the horn arrangements was like. You're making a really important record there, guys. It's very true what you're saying in this song, and all this kind of stuff. And that's just kind of serendipity. That you're there at that time. That then colours what you think about the record in times to come.
There's something about the sort of earliest, most primitive kind of way of writing songs on guitar that still kind of appeals.
It's like a kind of this. It's like the sound of a piano or the sound of an electric guitar plugged in, or a sound of an acoustic guitar. They are sort of archaic things to some extent, and we've always wanted to have an electronic element, and the keyboard sounds are important to us in the band, but if something needs one of those sounds, you've got to go with it again. Sort of look for what the song needs.
Sure, which is interesting because Gil. I didn't talk to Gil myself, but Chris did that one. But he said that Gil is all about the pre-production. So like loads and loads of discussions and listening to, like he said, the acoustic version of a song. So the songwriter or the songwriters playing a version on the acoustic guitar or something, and then you get to the kind of soul of the song.
You'd very much like we would play, and he would be in a circle, and he would be sat there with us as we played.
Notepad
in a room like this kind of thing, not in a recording studio.
Just he would come and he came to Newcastle. The second album we did, there's a place called Ellipse. A friend of ours, Andrew Mills, did the kind of engineering with Gil, and we would. That was we'd sit in with the room with us, and we'd go through things like books from boxes and stuff like that. And it's same with the National Health. He would just come to the studio, and then we'd sit in this circle, and then he'd go. There'd be the odd thing at that point where it's like, right, we might analyse this a bit, or the feel of something, here and there. So. Because a lot of the time we're quite self-sufficient in the arrangement side and writing, but then he would always come up with a little something that you're like,
Right, okay, yeah.
I think he's kind of influenced our thinking. Last week we were in the studio with Tom, our drummer, and working on the arrangement of a new song, and it took us 2 days to rearrange the song, and then Dunk's done a mix of it, which we were listening to this morning.
Yeah.
In our separate houses, and on the WhatsApp thread that we've got.
Yeah.
It's Tom's going, there's another little edit here that I'd like to do, another little rearrangement. And yeah, I mean, I think you know, Tom is undoubtedly forensic in his listening to things, and that's kind of one of the things that he brings to the band, aside from being a great drummer.
Yes.
You know, he loves picking over the arrangements. And sometimes we might end up back to where we started, but we try everything.
Yeah.
And I think Gil Norton totally embedded that into our work ethic and how we approach things.
Yeah, that whole being aware of arrangement, whereas before it was just like instinctive. It was like, this just feels right, and we don't quite know why necessarily.
Because there's songs on a certain trigger. I can imagine they don't sound like they. How can I put this? They don't sound like you had to labour over the arrangements necessarily. Like they don't sound like you haven't given them any thought, but they, you know, like a song like "The Coast Is Always Changing."
Yeah,
it just seems to kind of play it. Everyone is doing the right thing for it, and it plays it. You know.
Yeah, I think generally that was the case. I think with Coast Is Always Changing, and I think I Want You to Stay, Paul Epworth. I think there was a reintroduction. He's like, you've got to have that riff again there. Okay, cool. So we brought it in just before the middle bit.
Right. Okay.
And then
that's a great thing with a producer when they focus on one little thing. And so bring that in.
Yeah, that's right. Like, it's suddenly you're kind of thinking a bit differently about it, which is cool. You know?
And the pre-choruses, like I've got a Spotify pre-chorus playlist because I love pre-choruses, and the pre-chorus to Going Missing. Which I think is great, and I could have handled a third time of the pre-chorus, but never mind, you know. But yeah,
do an edit for you and send it over.
Yeah.
Special version,
right? Yeah. So you primarily, it seems to be the vast majority is the two of you, right? And then the keyboard player, is it Lucas? He wrote some stuff too.
Yeah.
And you wrote some music as well.
Yeah.
On some of them, but you're the sort of the Lennon McCartney kind of thing.
The whole writing team.
Yeah, for the bulk, music, lyrics, and we, and of course, sometimes like Paul have a musical idea, and then Lucas, and Archie's when we started, you know, both of them write great songs. So and you know, oftentimes there'll be songs that are actually a mashup. Like for The National Health is all four of us. It's an Archie's idea, one of mine, one of Lucas's, and then you know Paul as well. So it's kind of.
Is your old bass player?
Yeah, and so it was always quite, you know, that those sort of ones, you know, how, you know, it's like Frankenstein kind of songs.
Yeah,
but they wouldn't have worked without everybody's kind of input.
Sure,
so that's quite, you know, they're always quite cool when that happens.
That's really good. Yeah,
I think we're the most prolific sort of writers anyway.
Yeah,
you know, like Duncan comes up with loads of stuff.
Right,
generally speaking.
You're prolific enough to need to do solo stuff as well.
Well, that's another issue. And there's things that we, you know, like when I'm doing my solo stuff, I'm playing the guitar, and you know, there's kind of nothing for anybody else to do really.
Right.
You know, if I like something as it is, I'll just get my mates to drum on it.
Right.
And get somebody to play the bass on it, or I'll play the bass these days very badly to make it work. But to me, it's, you know, songs are the kind of important thing when it comes to solo stuff. It's things that I think, that's a good song, I want it out there.
Right.
You know.
So do you feel like when you're coming up with an idea, do you think this is a Paul Smith song, this is not a Maxïmo Park song?
Sometimes, but a lot of them are songs that just Maxïmo Park weren't into. You know, that is I should just call them rejects 1, 2 and 3. My solo records. But no, there are some. They're sort of mostly made up of, even if it's sort of 60% of things that I think, that's not really a Maxïmo Park song, or I've done too much on it and I just think that's fine. Really, there's not really any need to have a band.
And then there's not the politics of saying, right, I need to sort of involve other people
sort of
occasionally.
Being too prescriptive with things and saying, right, this is exactly how I want the guitar to be done. You haven't really, because I finger pick kind of in a very rudimentary way, and it just works for me. Right. And I wouldn't sort of say, hey Dunk, you know, you need to your third finger's not doing the right thing here. You're doing it too well.
Do you ever play live with
never? Never
okay.
played.
Right.
Which is kind of funny, but also it was mooted at one point,
right?
Especially when we were adding more stuff into the songs.
Yeah.
But then there came a point where everybody was like, "No, you're all right."
Right. Okay.
But I'm a front man.
Yeah, you are quite
on stage. My purpose would be dimmed down, and sure enough, when I play solo, it's a very different feeling, and I feel like it's what has to be done. But also, I'm aware that I can't look at the audience all the time. I'm looking down, and these lyrics are very personal, and that has a kind of different effect when you're doing solo stuff. You think, okay, if this is even though Maxïmo Park lyrics are very personal and emotional, there might be something just 1 or 2% more introspective about my own stuff, and that hasn't been filtered through the idea of, all right, the other 4 or 5 guys have got to hear this. I'm not thinking about that, which is kind of liberating in some ways, and sure enough, that music will then probably be too intimate for some people who like our band. Other people will find a nice crossover there. But yeah, when I'm singing the emotional, direct lyrics of Maxïmo Park, it has another effect, because I'm looking at people, I am acting out the songs, I'm trying to get people into the songs physically with my with, the way that I move, or even, the way that your facial expressions are, all those kind of things. We didn't want to lose that by me playing the guitar, and I'm not a great guitar player either, so it would have been like, it sounds a bit more like the record, but then
to
you
what
lose
the price of that.
You're gonna lose something.
Absolutely.
You were born in winter, the summer came too fast, like a child you can't control. Now isn't it obvious that you still value his word, now that it's not there? A love life down the drain, now isn't it obvious? Some people hide their emotions, and some people show too much. I'm aiming for somewhere central, now isn't it obvious? He changed his look for you, but you changed your life for him. Now was the verdict worth the trial? Did we go too far? Is that why your nose is bleeding? Last night I dreamt we kissed on a bench in the evening.
I can hear tons of REM in your playing, like one of those songs on the second album, Nosebleed, I think. That sounds sort of quite early kind of Peter Buck. But I mean, also, I think maybe because your voice is so English, it doesn't sound like any.
Oh no.
Which is obviously it's great but I suppose maybe that kind of maybe fools people into thinking that you've been listening to more English music than
I
you
think
have.
so. Yeah, no, I think you can't get too annoyed about these things. It's kind of a little bit of a, it bugs you a little bit, but ultimately, people are talking about you. That's great.
Yeah.
Fine. And it will always be those things that are on the surface that will catch people first. And if that's an accent, again, a lot of people didn't sing in their own accents, and a lot of people thought that I was laying it on thick, but then when they hear me talk, they realise that is the way that it is.
It goes in waves, don't you find? Like sometimes it's really cool,
Of course,
to sing in your own voice, and then sometimes it's strange that field music definitely don't sing in their accents.
Well, I think they do. But
do you think they do?
But they're also
actually. Sorry, you're quite right. They do, but but they have a sort of strange way of getting round it. So
they will.
It's a softer accent in a way, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, they don't pronounce, in terms of accent, their accent is probably less pronounced than mine, and I become because of the kind of music that it is, it becomes
Right.
more declamatory in a way. There's
Yeah.
something I am young and I am lost, and if it's softer, as Dunk says, if it's softer, those things are more embedded within what's happening. And I also think, as you were saying, they get around certain things by, if a lyric isn't necessarily going to fit, they won't. They will maybe probably bend it in a different way.
Whereas you go straight for the.
Yeah, I'm. It's kind of my voice is a blunt force for good, hopefully. And it it is what it is.
Yeah,
It's what
yeah,
I've always thought about my voice. I think I've become a better singer.
Right.
As time's gone on, which you can hear on the records.
Yeah.
But also, that's not to diminish how I started out singing, because I felt like, I'm comfortable. This feels like me. This feels right. This feels right for the music, and I'm not going to think about it any more than that. Because sometimes, you pronounce when you're first starting to sing. Because I'd never sung before, being in Maxïmo Park.
Right.
I didn't write lyrics or anything like that. So they sent me away with these songs, knowing that I, might be a good frontman, because I sort of kicked around playing guitar in my instrumental band, and they knew that I could sing. From Tom's now wife listening to me in World Headquarters, a club in town.
I heard about that. Yeah,
just in the background while we were having a drink, and so I could I can hold a tune for sure. I can sing in that respect, and I was interested in being on a stage, and if the music was good, and transmitting it across to people, but I didn't know how to sing or what, especially when it's exposed and you're in a room with these people that you don't know that well. I knew Tom from university, but knew nobody else in the band, and you're singing and you're thinking, what shall I sing about? And then the things that felt right to me to sing to the music that they already had was stuff about, I guess, romance, and the everyday things. Some of the political things that have kind of entered the music. I think I've become more confident about that, and how to express it, and what kind of method I should use. Whereas, even though I might have felt the same way at that point in 2003 in this practice room, those things just didn't feel right. They felt too obvious and just not good enough. And the things that felt right were these emotional things, and the way to sing was, I didn't feel like I had an option. And so one of my big influences was Robert Wyatt.
Okay.
Even though it sounded nothing like our music, I would listen to his music and just be like, right, that is the way to sing. This guy is it's so close to his speaking voice. It's so close to what he believes.
Sure.
There's virtually no difference, but it's a beautiful melodic instrument, and it has its limitations.
And lyrically, he also strikes that same balance that you do, I think, between conversational and poetic.
Hopefully, thank you.
Well, I know. I mean, I've written down.
Well, that's. I mean, not many people mention it, but.
Well, no, because it is really. There's sort of like, I'm thinking about that line in Graffiti.
He might have written this one.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
The chorus. You do graffiti while you sing to me in French.
Yeah.
What are we doing here if romance isn't dead? That is so conversational, but it's also so poetic.
Well, that's kind of half and half. So the first bit's mine and the second bit's Paul's.
Okay.
And that was how I fitted into the band initially.
Right.
If there was a lyric from the song before I had joined that I thought was good and mostly fitted with my own sensibility.
Yeah.
If it was something that I felt a kinship with. Which obviously wasn't the case with a lot of the lyrics that were there. I was like, it doesn't really, it doesn't mean that much to me, so I can't sing it with this kind of passionate whatever. But that was one where I felt like, right, this is, I'm going to make this about something that it's not about.
Okay.
So it was I'll do singing. I'll do graffiti while you sing to me in French.
Yeah.
So I made it a kind of conditional. I'll do graffiti if you sing to me in French. It's like a kind of more of a romantic, I'll do this if you do this. What are we doing here if romance isn't
Oh, is
dead?
there an if in there?
Yes.
I
So
didn't hear the if.
this is the thing. It's kind of the
subtle
subtle changes to me made
yeah.
me think, right, I can sing this.
Yeah,
And I was very
yeah.
into situationism at the time.
Right.
And the idea of graffiti being this kind of thing that was on the streets of Paris in 1968.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, under the beach, the sea, these beautiful kind of romantic phrases, but are sort of very politically engaged.
Yeah.
That to me was the sort of key into
Yeah.
the song, and I also just thought this is a brilliant lyric, you know, like
It's very memorable.
that just sounds cool.
Yeah.
And the same with Archer's. Our old bass player had written the Limassol, and I was like, that's just a great
So abstract.
sounds.
isn't it?
Yeah, it just
it's
sounds
like,
good, and
well,
it's a
yeah.
great
Yeah.
sounding
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And to me, I then wrote a song about being somewhere else and escape, and using this kind of Limassol as this
Yeah,
totemic
yeah.
part of it, which was already part of the song.
Right.
And so for me, that was, you know, I was trying to find my way into writing lyrics
Right,
and to
okay.
what should it be about.
And that's what gives it its energy, though. It's got the edge as well, you know, because if you were feeling, I suppose, slightly not at odds as such, but like you had to fit in your own way, you know. So it's a little bit edgy. It's got this kind of like, is this working? But you're not hiding away at all.
No,
you're loud. And
well, I mean,
you know.
that's the case with all of the records. I think there'll be things that I regret doing or mistakes, and just go, well, you know, I was trying to put it all out there, lay it on the line.
I just wanted to, just before we move on, I just wanted to touch upon the album that you did with Peter.
Oh yeah.
Because when you were saying before about singing, about how you, I can't quite remember what you were saying, but something to do with the lack of subtlety you maybe had, and then that feels like you've really got the subtlety in there because it blends with the musicality of what he's put in there really well.
It's an interesting one. I mean, I think it is probably the most sort of left field thing that I've
it's a lovely
been
album,
involved with.
I must admit I hadn't
Thanks.
heard that until 2 days ago, but it's fucking great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like it couldn't. I mean, it might have come a year or two earlier, but before that, it probably wouldn't have struck me to have that.
Right.
To have those words with music.
Yeah.
When we first started out, I used to write a lot of diary entries that went on our website of just where we were, and I often thought, is there a way of condensing this into the music? And I think that through our records, it became more like that. You know, night falls and towns become circuit boards.
Yeah.
We can beat the sun as long as we keep moving. You know, the lyrics like that on the second record, it is kind of pushing the more poetic side of the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, the final words on the album, I love the tiny veins on your back, they remind me of the way that porcelain cracks. You know, these things you might not hear on, I don't know, somebody else's records.
Right,
but
definitely.
you know, again, it's taking a chance. I mean, a lot of people would go, that's a load of rubbish. You know, stick to the point.
Yeah.
And Frozen by Sight is taking that to the fullest degree and just saying, right, I'm going to write about my environment, and I'm not going to include the things that perhaps I'm good at or known for, even if maybe I'm not good at them, but that kind of everyday romantic sort of emotional, very personal side to it. And yet the songs are, in the end, you know, the observing people and the relationships between people and their environment. Like there's the LA street cleaner who's, you know, there's the massive curb in Los Angeles that's halfway up the middle of his shin, and it's just kind of absurd, a little like you know, it's an image that hopefully people will see that goes with the music. And you know, I would give Peter musical sketches, and then he would add some string arrangements, and then there were other points where Peter would just give me a full string arrangement, like Mount Wellington Rises off that record, which is the most sort of strident chamber pop strings and vocals on that record. And somehow those two things worked. I didn't know whether they would work, because, you know, it was just me strumming a guitar, and not feeling like I needed to write a pop song, which I do with my own solo records. They still need to be melodic. They still need to be structured like a pop song, even if they're slow and referencing post-rock stuff. It still needs to be a song.
Up close, palm tree leaves have hairs. Stone deco, smiling curves. Ooh. A small man sweeps water in the gutter. The curb comes up to the middle of his shin.
What times during your career have you felt like pressure, like something that's changed to make you feel sort of under pressure? And Duncan was saying it was after Our Earthly Pleasures was perhaps the...
It was probably the shakiest, because we'd suddenly come off the back of that, and and seeing the audience grow was like, and doing 3 nights at Brixton and stuff was like, whoa. And then you come off the back of that and you come back to like an industrial kind of wasteland in Dunstan, and you're sat there in this kind of very cold rehearsal room with cars on the wall and dead flies everywhere,
right?
And you've got to come up with the follow-up, and I think there was a lot of pressure, I think, we put on each other, and there were some really good songs that were nearly songs that we just had different ideas about, and which is fine. I mean, that's kind of normal, but we found a way in the end. But it felt like they needed the songs very quickly off us. And
did they being
management and label? Yeah. So, but we were like up for the challenge. But I think at the same time, it was like, we probably weren't, fully ready right until the last minute when we did go in. We were still kind of trying. I mean,
we could have probably approached it differently and had an extra couple of weeks.
Right.
To even an extra couple of weeks would have made a difference to how the third record sounded. And I think that's the sort of the other side of going somewhere else to do it.
Yeah.
It was mixed remotely. We came back and were mixing at odd hours of the day on what was it, iChat on the Apple
really?
Mac.
Oh god.
This was pre sort of Skype was faulty. Certain people hadn't got it, and all these kind of things that you think, wow, that really that was a barrier to making your record. Kind of
right
in the end. And so the mixing process was kind of difficult. If we'd have had more money, we could have, if we were a massive band on a big label, we could have stayed out there and done that. I think it's that pre-production again. Pre-production for our first album was years long, and just making the songs, as everybody says, you have a lifetime to write your first record and all that sort of thing. Which is, there's definitely an element of truth to that. But the third record, we were still unsure about the arrangement. There were still things that are now on that record that we think, why didn't we fix that? We were meant to fix that, and we just moved on to something else. And again, that goes counter to our whole belief system in that every second shouldn't, you should justify every single aspect of it. I think some of the we tried to do different things with some of the songs. We'd done a punky record, we then did a rock record, and the next one we wanted it to be groovy. Wanted to have it a sort of more rigid sort of grooves. And that was the key to that record and the sound of it. And while I like that, I do feel like certain songs didn't necessarily fit into that template. And I don't think, I think we were too polite to each other, and we didn't say exactly what we felt because we were trying to find a consensus. Whereas now we try and find a consensus, but if something's not happening, you just can't go with it.
No, sure.
You know, there are songs where we were trying to. We all felt like we found a good compromise here, and then you realise, you know, maybe a year later or a few weeks after it's been mastered or whatever, that somebody else didn't like an aspect of it, which that then leads to you thinking, well, did I like this or did I like that? And then you end up thinking this is muddled, this is not as focused as we have been.
Isn't it?
And that's hard to take, especially when you like the songs, you know, and you think, given an extra 2 weeks, we would have filled this sort of gap that feels like there's a gap in this song that doesn't quite gel, or a sound of, you know, like The Kids Are Sick Again. The end of that song, I almost wanted it to be like loads of like a school choir or something singing Their Kids Are Sick Again. And we recorded our vocals over and over again, and all of us were chanting on that at the end. And in the end, it didn't have the kind of the sound that would have allowed it to be less chanty. Having said that, I still think I mean, a lot of people say to me, that's one of my favourite songs. Like Paul out of our band at the moment says The Kids Are Sick Again is amazing. I love that song, and a lot of my friends said that at the time, and I always thought, we could have done that better, and it would have been less sort of blokey and chanty. But ultimately, you know, it was 5 blokes in a studio trying to create this sound instead of saying, no, that's not what we need something else, we need to get somebody in, we need to go and find some people on the street or whatever, and, you know, have think outside the box. But we just didn't. It was like, we've done that now, that song's finished, I'm sure I'll learn to live with it. And unfortunately, I feel like for all of us in the band, there are too many let's live with it moments on that record. And I also think
time as well was there was a pressure there, and I think the other thing is,
how long were you there for?
I think we only had 3 weeks. Was it?
It might have been was it 4 weeks, and the first week was pre-production. So it was very fast for us. We'd always had like that extra week to finish things off and make sure that we liked things, and we'd mixed. You know, like the second record was mixed so diligently and well. You know, it felt like we were all there in the same room. It felt like we'd found a way of doing that. But again, we were in the mindset of, well, we've done that. Let's try a different way. Let's change our mindset. And
I mean, I think everyone there's a few of us, you know, also had a lot of personal stuff going on, which is also hard to focus when you're away from home. And I think there was just kind of it was weird because, you know, as well, we're in Los Angeles, and every morning we're on this kind of back porch with this little kind of battered couch, and the sky's the same every morning, which is beautiful, but then it's like this weird groundhog existence. It was amazing to be there, but you also, it almost drives you a little bit crazy. And I think there was that thing of various members had stuff going on, and also it's kind of stuff that's difficult to explain, but I think with that, and then us under pressure, time constraints, and
you don't realise it until it's finished. That's the thing. You know, we talk about it now, and at the time you're like, yes, I'm going for a swim in the sun, and I'm going to lay down some vocals, and
sounds
living the dream.
And that's pretty good.
You're looking so pleased with yourself. I'm going to come over there and wipe that smile off your face. Petty crimes in your leisure time, you struggle to break out. Wash away all your cheap mistakes, your abstinence, your drought. In another world, you'd have found me by now, but you'll still end up on the revolving dance floor in the middle of the river.
One of the things we ask is called the level 42 question, and basically, do you know much about level 42?
just enough to get by.
Okay.
Mark King slapping his bass.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the interesting things I found about them was the early 80s. They made a few records. Everything was going quite well, touring, all good, but not sort of blowing the roof off. And then they sat down and they said, right, lads, we've got to hit pay dirt. We've got to write some bona fide hit singles deliberately. And they did. They actually made that decision, and they went for the jugular, and they wrote the songs that would become their biggest hits, and it worked. It worked for them. Funnily enough, it also resulted in the demise of their original lineup because they got too big, kind of thing. But so the level 42 question is basically: have you, or would you, deliberately sit down and say at the beginning of the process, right, we're gonna write a hit single?
That is a very difficult question.
Yes,
because we feel like a lot of our songs, that is just our mindset anyway.
Fine, yeah.
We are, because we've always thought of ourselves as a pop band. Ultimately, that was the thing that kind of maybe marked us out from a lot of bands, locally, even on that kind of micro level when you're first starting out. Bands want to be credible. They want to be, attractive to the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever. There are lots of motivating factors. A lot of musos make music, unsurprisingly. But we were like, to write a great pop song that changes somebody's mood or their opinion for 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, that's like
alchemy.
Yeah, it is alchemy. It's something that you can't explain it as well, that's the classic thing that everybody says about whatever kind of success they might be having. If I could repeat it, I would, and I'd be rich and whatever, or I would have made that alchemical super pop moment, or that moment muso moment that I was searching for. You can't you can't force these things.
I think as well
in some ways, but obviously the level 42 question is, you can force it if you really focus and everything aligns around it, and you've got the talent to do it.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like you've got to have a certain, and it's also a certain type of talent. Because sometimes I've heard records over the years where you can tell that that's what they're trying to do, but they haven't.
Well, that's virtually every record that's trying to get into the pop charts in some ways. Whereas to me, like a perfect pop song might never have been a hit. It could be a big star song. Big star, that idea of power pop. And a lot of that is, a lot of the first couple of records is kind of rocking. It's kind of quite rocking stuff. But Alex Chilton, sometimes would just hit this pure pop moment, and it's so good. September Girls is like, massive pop song, but it's kind of weird as well. But like the idea that we could still be us and yet write amazing pop songs.
You'd have to. I think with us as well, we're aware that we'd have to iron out the quirkiness that is. Because the thing is, it's funny that we were listening to some songs the other day that were like incredibly not made by us, but incredibly kind of well done, but kind of straightened out. And everything happens at the right point, you feel
like you've heard it before,
but you heard it
not necessarily in a good way.
And
that's the thing. You want certain bits of your song to sound familiar enough, like, oh right, that's a guitar making that riff, but it's a great riff. Whereas if it's a riff you feel like you've heard before, that's boring.
But it's a hook, isn't it, as well?
Like
that. That old pre-chorus I was talking about, the Going Missing one with the forget it. That's just like, okay, that's a hook. And sometimes you do feel like you've heard it before, but not that you've heard it before, but you recognise what it's.
I think that's part of
trying to do.
Definitely, and I think that's part of something that we do is like, it's almost you want people to recognise or connect with it, but then not feel too much like, oh, that's from that song.
Sure.
Isn't that a Beatles thing? Which you do hear in songs. You like sung on the other. It's like I was listening to Billie Eilish and production is great, and then it's like that's like People Are Strange, The Doors. The that one. Can't remember the name of it.
I don't know.
It's great. Yes, Bury a Friend. listen to Bury a Friend and then listen to People Are Strange. There's a kind of relationship, but then maybe that's pure coincidence. But I think going back to that Level 42 thing, I think we were we could do that. We could do that, but we would be bored. But you could be bored and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Whether or not, also, it would have to have that thing, and people would go, actually, that's a great pop tune, and we're not the. We could never decide that. That would be somebody else deciding that.
And it probably, I mean, it would. You could write the greatest song. You know, you could write You're Running in the Family, but if people don't want to hear it from your group, it is. There's so much more around it. You know, the times move on, and there's a tiny window for somebody who doesn't look like a pop star to then become a pop star. It might be, you know, Adele. It might be Billie Eilish.
Lewis Capaldi.
People who, Lewis Capaldi. Yeah. You know, another one where people would go, right, that guy doesn't look like a pop star.
Yeah.
Let's not even. We'll either accept it or just say, right, it's never going to make us money again, because it's people are giving you money to then promote it, to you know, plug things, to get the best of the best in the industry to work, to put your poster on the tube, to ram it down people's throats, to advertise on YouTube, then have it popping up before you watch the Match of the Day highlights or whatever. You know, all of those kind of things that needs to be behind you, and the gap is very small for anybody outside of, you know, Taylor Swift, who is a great songwriter. But again, definitely, she looks $1 million.
Yeah.
Again, it's presentation. It's fitting into archetypes that are already there.
Yeah.
You know, that's all those things. I mean, we couldn't do it now because we're about to make our 7th record. People already have a very firm opinion of us if they've heard of us. Yeah. If they haven't, they'd be like, "Who are these old blokes trying to write a pop song?" Again, people of our generation might not think that, but if you're 15 and listen to Radio 1, it would take some sort of miracle for even if we wrote a song that was cutting edge production, totally fresh. You know? And so, you know, I guess then the question becomes, for, you know, whatever our target market might be, which then I find that kind of thing again very constricting, and, you know, but also, you know, realistically, you know, our last album didn't get playlisted on Radio 1, it got playlisted, some of the songs got playlisted on Radio 6, so you would then go, right, that is your target market. Could we write a song that would get onto 6 Music and smash it? Right. Probably, I think we could, but again, that's not up to us.
Because that's that's the sort of, like, what sort of hit single are you talking about? Because, I mean, there's the Radio 1 hit single, but there's also the 6 Music hit single, and I always think of that song by The National, Blood Buzz Ohio, which I feel like that is a sort of classic 6 Music hit single. Pretty much everyone who listens to 6 Music knows that song really well, and if that came on if you were out in a bar and that came on, everyone would start going, "Yeah, this is a great song," you know. So that I suppose is the sort of thing you would be trying to do. But it's funny because when we asked this question to the Field Music, Dave, he sat there listening to Peter give a very polite response to the question, and then Dave went, "You know what? I'm not going to do his voice, but I think all indie songs that are trying to sound like hits sound fucking rubbish." He said, "I don't think I'd ever want to make a record like that, you know." And that's in a much less a sweary way. That's what Kate Stables from This Is the Kit said. She said, "I don't understand why I'd want to do that. Why would I want to do that?"
Well, you're also, this is a slight diversion, but whatever, if you write a big song, if your song does indeed get played lots and people want to hear it, if you're not fully on board with it, if it doesn't feel right to you, then that's a millstone around your neck.
You're cursed to play it for the next.
That must be a fairly horrible feeling. Whereas
that's the Kurt Cobain thing, where he didn't want to play "Smells Like Teen Spirit." So they played "More Than a Feeling" by Boston instead,
which is a good song. It's, you know, it's this is the thing, you can't, you've got to be realistic as well, and realise that you are part of this world. We're not. We've always wanted to do, for our songs to do well. how you define well is a very different thing, and it changes as you go on. You know, we didn't know we had an audience until we made the first record. Then you realise you've got an audience, and again, the temptation for many people must be, let's try and do that again, so that we can keep making music or keep doing this or make lots of money. It seems to me it's a kind of anti-art strategy. It's very business-like.
Right. You can get a balance though.
But you can get a balance, and this is the thing. I love plenty of songs that have probably been written that way, and you know, there's. Again, you've got to believe in the power of a pop song. You've got to go back to what I was saying. So, do you believe in that idea of a chorus saving somebody's life? Do you believe in like being moved to tears by a song? Do you believe in wanting to dance your bum off on the dance floor to something that is incredibly funky and a great pop song as well? And again, that's another thing, you know, for a band who, like, I don't know, Hot Chip or somebody, they've nailed that sort of, you know, something that's danceable and credible, that you could probably hear in a club just about, but also that you can hear on Six Music or Radio 1, and, you know, is a great pop song. And again, as a, you know, has a sort of fragile emotional centre, you know, a very fragile voice at its centre that perhaps, you know, is the antithesis of the disco diva, you know, you know, these pounding beats. It's kind of a way of finding a way of doing what you do that does tick those boxes, if you want to use that terminology.
Be statistical about it.
But I mean, you know, we do think about like the structure of our songs and go, you know, is that bridge, you know, is that bridge good enough? Does it lead up to the chorus? Does it then give the chorus impact if you're mixing? You know, how do we get the balance right between the verse and the, you know, it'd be easy to put everything in the red for the chorus. We have done that a few times. But like, you know, there's a subtlety to it. But you're also trying to make something that has the impact for people on that first listen. But you also want something that has an impact on people on the 100th. 200th listen, you know, you want to make something that's timeless. But also, I like having something that's a product of its time and not saying, right, I just want everything to be acoustic and real, man, and authentic. You know, if there's a new sampler or keyboard sound out there, or, you know, a way of making a hybrid noise that sounds a bit like something that you've never heard before, then that is the way as well. And saying, oh, well, you know, like Lynn drums or something, the Blue Nile is incredible, and at some point it sounded quite dated, and then it just stopped sounding dated and became just timeless. You know, again with like Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush stuff from that time. You know, Running Up That Hill is unbelievable. You know, but I guess if you listen to that in 1996 when Nirvana was, or whatever, whoever was, you know, on the radio. And that kind of grungier sound had become embedded into popular culture. That sort of thing must have sounded, a little bit dated or whatever. And maybe it didn't. I don't know. I'm rambling now.
Every now and then. Oh, sorry.
What time is it?
It's actually, we've been talking quite a long time. I mean, you know, guys, I could carry on, but it's just going to be a nightmare at the editing process if we carry on talking. But I don't do a kind of grand finish, you know. We sort of tend to. I'm going to press stop, but no, thank you so much, guys. That's really awesome.
I still remember how you moved, and I taste your scent upon my lips. Well, how it started, I will never know, but now I've reached my limit. This can't go on, so I should just regret it. And even though I let you on, forget it. I'm going
So there you go. My thanks to Paul and Duncan from Maxïmo Park for being great guests and great company. And just for the hell of it, thanks to Damien Samuels for accompanying me up to the frozen northeast. It wasn't particularly frozen, actually. Anyway, lots of fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a review if you like. It helps other people find the podcast. See you next time.
I'm going missing for a while. I've got nothing left to lose. Oh, I'll listen to anything. I've got nothing in defense. I've got nothing left to lose. Oh, I'll listen to anything. I sleep with my hands across my chest and I dream of you with someone else.
Just trying not to eat too many chocolate things and.
I've got a bought a load of biscuits.
Oh. Do you have your eye on one of these two?
I'm alright at the moment. I had a massive breakfast. So I'm kind of in a slight post-breakfast slumber.
Well, I've had a milk chocolate one. I'll go for a white chocolate.
Yeah, pretty good.